to you about your choice to be your personality, to identify and be who you really are. Express. Well, actually, I might put it. Yeah. So I think the heading in the book is actually expressing myself. So I might call it that, so that. So the first thing in expressing yourself is feel who you feel to be, what you feel to be doing at any one moment in your day, and do it and be it. Feel what you feel. Feel your emotion right now, whatever that emotion is, and choose to be it. Be it rather than denying it's there. Right? So if you're feeling happy, what you would do if you did this, if you felt unhappy right now, you'd cry. Because you're choosing to be whatever you feel right now. And if that's cry, then you cry. Now, if you feel happy, or you feel like it's just something was funny, you choose to be you, no matter what, no matter who's around, and you'd laugh. Like, even if it was in the middle of like an audience or something and nobody else laughed. You thought it was funny, you'd laugh. You follow? You would. If you choose to be in this right now, in this moment, whatever you're feeling right now, you would be it. That's what it means to be yourself as a person right now in this instant. We're trying to focus your attention on what's happening right now. So what do you feel right now, do you think? Just let yourself breathe diaphragmatically into your tummy, into your chest, as much as air you can get in, and breathe in and out for a bit and feel what you feel. Like, just allow yourself to feel what you feel. Stop tuning out of what you feel. What do you feel? Now, is that happy, sad, whatever? Just let it be. Even if don't have to let it just wash over you maybe here, but let yourself acknowledge, yeah, when AJ starts talking about myself stuff, I just go, here we go again. It's all my failings, all the things I've got to do. I'm sick of hearing about it, really. Honestly, if that's what you felt, I'd prefer that you express that. So you don't think I'd prefer that, but I do. Because if you express that, I could deal with that. But when you push that away, you know how you go? So in here, it's... out there, it's... and it hardly reaches there, right? It hardly reaches your eyes. Right? And you're there masking what you feel. Purposefully. It's a purposeful action. Yeah? So, Sandra, you'd like to ask? Have we got a mic? Yep.
Jesus, I wanted to ask you for a long time. In the past few days, you've mentioned the feeling of saying how are you to someone or something like that, and then you said, but the real feeling is I want to kill you.
Yeah.
And so my question is, would you actually say that? I've been pondering that, like, because if the emotion behind it is
what
angry.
I'm suggesting is if you be yourself, Sandra, feel like you want to kill somebody, and I suggest that's a pretty strong emotion, obviously driven by some rage, you would sit with that and you'd acknowledge that and you go, yeah, actually, I can't say to them, how are you? Because I actually feel quite negative towards this person. And what I really need to do is go away, feel this feeling of why I feel so upset with this person and try to get to the bottom of it. Does that make sense? But at least honour the feeling, right? Stop making out that you're actually interested in their welfare, because you're not. You see what I'm saying? You know, whenever you make out, you're now in the facade, you're presenting a pretty face to the person, but the reality is you're feeling something quite different. Now recognise when it's unloving and do something about it. But see, you're not going to do anything about it unless you first feel, right? And certainly taking the action to present the thing to them, right, is certainly out of harmony with love. It makes it worse. It's lying to them now. Right, so you would stop that because it's an unloving act. To lie to somebody is unloving. You don't have to go and tell them that you feel that way about them, because that would also feel like an attack, would it not, on them, which would also be an unloving act. So go away and feel what you feel. Allow yourself to feel it. But stop thinking that you don't, and stop putting on the pretty face when you don't feel like doing it. Do you know what I mean? These things have to cease right now. You can stop them now. You can stop this will help you see the truth of what's going on if you do it now. But if you put it off and you go, yeah, no worries, and you're talking, isn't it a wonderful day, and act like you're interested in this person that you're not interested in at all, then what you're doing is you're falsifying, even to yourself, how you feel. And as we've said, lying to yourself is the worst thing you can do, because you're not going to progress then. Does that make sense, Sandra?
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah. So if you've got negative emotion, let yourself feel it. And to be honest, in these groups here, what we're trying to do is create an environment where you can express yourself even if you have a negative emotion. However, I'm not going to put up with you expressing yourself in that way as if I'm to blame for it, because that would just be feeding your addiction, to blame somebody else rather than take responsibility for your emotion. So what I'm suggesting is you don't force other people to be responsible for now what you feel. I'm suggesting you take responsibility for what you feel and feel it. Now, right now, every moment, every day, all the time. So you're driving in a car with your partner. She says, I want to get a coffee. You feel angry that you got to stop. Feel. Yeah, no worries. We'll stop. When inside you're going, why do I have to bloody stop again? I'm sick of stopping for this. Why doesn't she deal with this coffee addiction that she's got? God, instead of feeling all those things without saying it, feel what you feel. And if you have a really honest relationship, you'll be able to even state that in a more loving way than I've just said it, of course. You'll be able to state, I always feel that we have to stop for your addiction. That's all you have to say. Right? Feel what you feel, and where possible, express it. Right? If it's loving expression, then express it. If it's not a loving expression, go away by yourself if you can manage it, and a lot of times you can. Go away by yourself and feel, wow, there's pretty unloving feelings there. All of God's laws are trying to correct my feelings, so I need to work in harmony with this. I've got a pretty unloving feeling there. I need to address this feeling. But see, if you don't feel your feeling in the moment, you're definitely not going to address it. Makes sense, huh? Okay, so being part of expressing myself is expressing my real emotion. Now, I'm not suggesting you damage other people with your real emotion. I'm saying express it. So in other words, if I feel really damaged emotion towards Alex, instead of expressing it at Alex, I'll go into my room and express my emotion. This is how I feel, so I express it, right? And then I get to the bottom of it if it's unloving. But if I don't express it and I don't feel it, I'll never get to the bottom of it, right? But if I know, hang a sec, no, I feel real warmth for Alex. I want to give him a hug, but he doesn't look like he wants a hug from me, but I want to give him one, right? Then you'd try to express it. But you'd also be aware of whether he wants it or not. If you're a bit more emotionally open, you'd feel whether he wants it or not. Sometimes I feel like hugging you, and I feel like, yeah, you don't want it yet, so I'll put it off. Expressing real emotion based on love, we're talking here. But be real about it. Stop making out that it's not there. It's not how you feel. Amber?
I feel like a majority of people, myself included, feel very uncomfortable in like social situations where there's lots of people around, and then I'm sort of stuck with the feeling like, okay, should I just leave this feeling inside of me until I get home, or should I run into the bathroom and punch the door? I don't know.
Well, if you're really into expressing your feelings and letting your feelings go, you'd find if you feel like punching something, then you'd go and find something safe to punish and punch it, wouldn't you?
Well, see, I probably wouldn't. I'd just
Store
stay in that awkward situation, and
Yeah.
because I feel
If you store the emotion, Amber, you're going to have to deal with it at some other point. So many of you are storing an emotion and then not dealing it with the other point, at another point. And isn't that the same as what happened in your childhood? Store an emotion, not dealing with it at all. Storing another emotion, not dealing with it at all. That just adds to your pain. You need to release emotion to release pain. So if there is a painful situation right at the moment happening, you're far better off releasing the emotion than storing it. I find it remarkable, you know. I've been watching a show. I love documentaries, right? One of the documentaries I've been watching is called Air Crash Investigations, and it's interesting watching it because there's some people who were the families of people who had died in the crash, talking about the event. Now, these events happened, many of them happened 20 years ago or even longer. And one we watched the other night happened something like 26 years ago, 25 years ago. And the dad of the daughter, he was still choking down his tears 25 years later. And I said to Mary, people just don't want to cry. They just don't let themselves have a good bawl. And he obviously hasn't let himself have a good bawl about his daughter's death for 25 years. And all he needs to do is have a good bawl about it, and he'll feel better and he'll act differently and everything will start changing for him. He'll release some pain. But no, because he's been taught to store it and desensitized from it, it's all stored in there. And he starts talking to the air crash investigator and he can barely control his tears talking about the actual crash. Does that make sense? 25 years after it. Man, it's just like, how complex is that? Storing an event for years and years and years and years, and every time you talk about it, you only release a dribble. It's going to take hundreds of years to release one emotion like that. And this is what our problem is, Amber. We keep storing them rather than dealing with them. And every time you choose in the moment to store an emotion, you're going to find it much harder later to actually access it. You are.
This could be some childhood emotion coming up, but if you feel like it's an inappropriate time to address the emotion because there's lots of people around and you've got to be all bubbly and happy for the event or something, would you just go home after the event?
Well, for a start, it doesn't apply to my events, does it? Because I don't expect you to be bubbly and happy. So it doesn't apply to these events. When you're learning about this stuff, it doesn't apply. So it only applies to other events, and my suggestion is still the same. Whenever you store the emotion, you're making a choice to put off dealing with the emotion till a later time, and you're now consigning yourself to having to address that pain at some point in your future. That's what you're doing. Now, if you want to continue doing that, that's your choice. I'm just saying that every time you do it, for whatever reason, whether you're scared of people or scared of how they'll treat you or whatever the reason is, it doesn't really matter what the reason is. I'm just saying every time you store the emotion, it's going to have to be dealt with at some point later.
And did you personally go nuts or something at an event with lots of people, or did...
No, I haven't had to, because I've released my emotion at home when I'm by myself, which you don't do.
Okay.
So it's sort of like, if you're in the moment at home most of the time, you're in an environment that is under your control, you can release emotion at any time. You choose to release most of your emotion in that setting. How much emotion are you going to have left to deal with when you're in public? Hardly any, right?
But at home there's not lots of people around to judge me.
You still didn't hear what I said.
Sorry.
You didn't hear what I said. You have an emotion, whatever it is, at home. You can have them at home or anywhere else, right? At home there's no people around, so you release the emotion. Will that emotion need to be released when you're around people now? No, because it's already done.
But I feel scared around people, and at home there is no people, so I'm just like, oh, I'm okay.
No, I'm suggesting to you, Amber, you're not hearing me still. I'm suggesting to you, you don't release emotion at home. And therefore there's a whole heap of emotion that when you're around people gets triggered, and then you store it again to try to go home to release it. But when you get home, you don't get to release it because it's already gone by then. So you end up storing more and storing more and storing more.
So that's where soul space becomes very important.
Well, it's not only the soul space, it's your attitude at home. that matters a lot. You're at home like most people are at home more than they're anywhere else. Most people are by themselves a lot of the time, but we in that place choose to store emotion rather than feel it. And as a result, we get triggered by events when we're with people, and then we store it there too. And in the end, what happens? We end up not feeling anything. But no more questions for you because I need to keep going.
I was just going to say I use my kids as an excuse not to feel it when I'm at home
but
as
now
well.
we're talking about your personal story. Yep. So that's what I knew was coming next, and I wanted to prevent that. Thanks, Sherry.
So this is how we also get to know and feel more of our personality that God has given us.
Correct. All your personality is tied up in your emotion.
So the more you can feel how you really feel is also the way that others get to know us and we get to know ourselves and
Correct.
be real.
And people don't have to guess how you feel. They can see how you feel. I love it with Mary because it's written all over her face. I know how she feels. It's real easy, right? A lot of times I see it before she does, of course, because I'm more sensitive to it. But it's a lot better to know how somebody feels and see it than it is to be guessing all the time. Most of you in relationships spend half of your life guessing what the other person feels. Oh, does she feel this or she did feel that? Or what does she think? What does she feel there? What did she think there? Well, I don't know, because both of you are not expressing yourselves in the moment. Does that make sense? This is what I feel. This is what I think about that. So all you got to do. But what happens? Fear kicks in, your facade kicks in, and instead of doing that, you're doing a whole heap of other things. And what I'm suggesting is this is a choice in the moment. I can express myself in the moment. I can choose to be myself in the moment. I can feel my emotions in the moment and be myself. And particularly when I'm home, particularly when there's no one around me or just my family around me, that's when I need to be doing this. But most of us aren't. We're not. We're having this little silent inner world that we live in that nobody else knows. Even we don't really know it. We're just living in it. You get that? Even we don't know it because we're not even honouring the emotion and feelings we have. Laura?
So even like if we deny, like for myself, feeling grumpy, which I feel, the go through the denial techniques just of actually feeling why I don't actually just want to let people see that I'm grumpy.
Yeah.
It's a whole process in itself.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, it exposes the reason for the facade, right? Doesn't it, Laura? It's like, I don't want to show on my face that I'm grumpy. So, yeah. That doesn't reach here. I'm smiling. Or just try to be as blank as I can, like.
Yeah, even by myself.
Is there any
my
wrinkles
face
there
is
that
blank.
display what I feel? No, that's good.
Yeah.
What we need to do is allow ourselves, our body and everything to feel what it feels. You don't have to dump it on others, but you do need to learn to just be what you feel in the moment, right? And particularly when you're in family situation and at home by yourself, you need to do it then. And let's face it, that's a lot of our time. When we're alone working, we can do it then too. There's a lot of time that we can do this, but we're using excuses already and go, oh, but there's people around and oh, but this and oh, but that. And I'm saying, but hang on a sec, a lot of your time is by yourself. A lot of the time is just with your family or what you call your friends, and yet you're not doing it. And I'm suggesting to be your loving self, you need to learn to do it. It also is more loving to others because they get to see without having to guess. They get to feel without having to guess. Isn't that more loving? So I don't have to ask you how you feel. Well, it's easy for me because I can feel it anyway. But for the average person, they don't have to even ask how you feel. See it on your face. So if Justin looks grumpy, I think Justin's grumpy. What are you grumpy about, mate? That you can say that instead of having to say, what are you feeling? I don't even know what you're feeling. And it's far better to go, like, look at his face and he's displaying how he feels and he's grumpy and he might even be muttering under his breath and swearing away and whatever. And yeah, he's pretty grumpy. So I know he's grumpy then, right? I don't have to guess what he's feeling. I know he's feeling it. He's grumpy or he's upset about something. And most of the time I'll also probably see what it's about, even in that circumstance. So that helps him, because it helps him get away from his facade and actually know what's going on. Helps me because I know that he's in some emotion that I don't have to worry about. It's his emotion, but I know he's in some emotion and he's feeling it, and that's fantastic. And I don't have to guess what it is and work around it because he's telling me or he's showing me. It's much more loving. Yeah. So that's what we do. Very important to express your real emotion in the circumstance. And the same applies, of course, to your personality, expressing personality. Now, that might take a little bit more time for many of you because at this stage you don't really know what your personality is, right? So that's probably going to require getting rid of some facades and get addictions and probably even addressing some of this terror, because this terror is all about masking your true personality, right? But once you get to that point, be in the moment your personality. There's people who won't like it and there's people who will. Stop being addicted to everybody liking you and just be yourself, right? The reality is that anybody who loves will love you being yourself. So if anybody around you doesn't like you being yourself, they already don't know how to love. Yep, Sherry?
So feeling emotion is only one way of getting to know your personality more. So what are some of the other ways you might get to know your personality better?
Well, you're going to have to deal with this terror, as I said.
Right, okay.
Right. Unless you deal with the terror, right, the terror is all about not being your real personality.
Right. Okay.
Not being your real self. So unless you deal with the terror, you're probably going to have compulsions all the time to not be your real self. Mm-hmm. Now, but there are other times when you can feel your real self, right? You get enthusiastic about something, and instead of going enthusiastic about it, what do? You go, oh, no, I'm cool. Inside you're going, oh, it's so good. Inside, oh, I'm cool. Isn't that what we do? We don't want to show too much, don't want to show too much emotion because, people then know, they're really happy about that. I'll have to do that for them less. We're worried about other people and how they'll respond to our happiness, and some respond negatively and some respond positively, but we don't know that, and most of the time we don't know what they'll do. So what we do is we try to make everything's fine. Don't we? And then, and if you examine it, we do that with a lot of things, don't we? It's like, example, majority of you ladies in particular, when you're horny, you don't let your husbands know. You wait for him to work it all out for you. You do. Because you don't want to be perceived as a slut or someone who's a bit out there sexually or whatever, because oftentimes that is the case. So many of you do this. You don't let him even know. You don't show through your actions. Right? So these are all things that you're doing that are just masking your true nature. Why do you do that? Because you're afraid of taking a risk. You might be afraid of him rejecting you in that moment or whatever. There might be a lot of emotions that come up, if he does reject you in that moment and so forth, right? And then others of you do the opposite of that. So you're not feeling horny and he does, and you go, oh, I'll go along with it. Right? Because why? You're trying to manage his emotion. You're trying to manage how he feels. You're trying to make him feel okay with you. You don't want his anger. You don't want his, for being rejected or whatever, right? So you don't, not honest. You just go along. So quite often you go along with people around you to meet certain addictions of your own, or you don't display your true nature for the same reason, because it meets certain addictions of your own. And what I'm suggesting is, if you display your true nature and how you feel in each moment, it will help you deconstruct your addictions. It'll help you. It'll help you see what's going on. Right? This addiction for making your husbands happy even when you're not that happy, or the addiction to not let him be happy even when you would like to be. There's all driven by different addictions. So let yourself feel what you feel and act upon what you feel rather than just shutting it down. You see what I'm saying? Very important thing, expressing. And once you do that more and more, you start to be who you are. And by the time you've got through this terror, you'll start recognising wonderful parts of your personality. You'll be expressing it. Other people will be enjoying your company. And then there's other people who will be like hopping mad every time they see your face. They will, because, you know, they can't bear that you're happy, or they can't bear that you have this enthusiasm for whatever, music or art or whatever it is that you're enthusiastic about, right? And they'll be unhappy, but you don't care anymore. You're expressing yourself, emotions, unashamedly, without reserve. You're being open and transparent. So you don't worry about that anymore. Here, you worry about it. At this point of refusal of terror, you're worried. But you don't worry anymore. Once you've dealt with that, you don't worry about what it looks like to other people. Like, I jump around like an idiot sometimes in front of you. I don't care what you think about me. I don't. Why would I? It's who I am, and I'm showing you, but I'm being loving to you by expressing who I am. You don't have to guess who I am. You don't have to try hard to, dig under all the facade to find out who's the real Jesus. Right? And I'm suggesting you need to do the same yourself. Make sense? Yeah. Very important part of being yourself right now. Learning how to express yourself. And expressing yourself means taking risks. And you can see that every time you take a risk, you are actually triggering fear, right? This is good for you. This helps you identify your fears. It helps you identify your addictions if you take risks. And the biggest risk you need to take, obviously, to help identify this terror, this global terror, is the risk of being you. And if you can do that, you'll find that terror a lot faster than if you just go around trying to be what everybody else wants you to be, or to be more accurate, being what you believe everybody else wants you to be. Because that's really all we're doing. We don't even know. We spend half of our life being what the other person wants, and half of the time they don't even want it. But we don't know that. So we keep doing it. It's a big problem.